This man's left kick was atomic. Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Well, Bruce Lee, what about 10 million times? Yes, this legend trained one kick over 10 million times. In Muay Thai, the art of 8 limbs, he only needed one. As one of the most feared kickers of all time, his roundhouse was unlike any other during the golden era of Muay Thai. It was so devastating that all he needed to throw in a high-level fight was this one attack. Oftentimes, he looked like a video game character spamming a button. The best part, there was absolutely nothing his opponents could do about it. His left kick was so powerful that he could knock opponents to the floor by simply kicking their arm. Fight fans, welcome back to another episode of Lawrence Kenshin Striking Breakdowns. In this episode, we feature a man who has thrown the left roundhouse over 10 million times. This legendary striker is Samkor Gyatmontep, a man who kicked so hard that the Thai media dubbed him the Batman. You see, Bruce Lee had a great point in his famous quote, but it's not exactly correct either. Yes, a master of one attack must be feared more than a master of none. But what most people don't know about Bruce Lee's quote is that 10,000 is a very small number when it comes to a professional fighter. For example, a high-level southpaw training session can have a modest estimate of 60 left kicks per 3-minute round. Assuming that Samkor gets at least 12 rounds per session and trains twice a day, that's 1,800 kicks every day. If he only has one rest day per week, that's 315 days of training per year. By the end of the year, Samkor would have thrown about 570,000 kicks. Since Samkor started training at the age of 13, by the time he's 30, he'll have thrown more than 10 million kicks. And that's where most of these clips are capturing, a true master of a specialized craft. In his career, Samkor beat some of the most prolific fighters in Muay Thai history. This includes Sanchai, Namsak Noi, Kaluhad, Lam Namoon, Wang Jan Noi, Sang Tien Noi, Gao Lan, and Atachai. If you don't know who some of these fighters are, know that they are some of the best champions in the golden era of Muay Thai. You see, Samkor was so good with his left kicks that the all-time great champion Namsak Noi said he was his hardest opponent. Samkor's amazing track record against the elite Thai fighters during their prime puts him in a legendary status. Where Samkor looked absolutely unstoppable though, was in his fights against the great Japanese champions. While he's known for his devastating left kicks, he preferred to fight as a knee fighter when going against Thai competition. Yes, the southpaw left roundhouse is the most overpowered single attack in all of striking. The interesting thing about it is that it's particularly true when fighting outside of Thailand. It only takes a bit of research to know that this is a pattern that rhymed in history. You see, the other most feared legendary left kicker, Yodsun Klai, also had a similar pattern in his fights against Thai champions. Yodsun Klai fought a very well-rounded style that earned him the nickname Boxing Computer. While he was a stadium champion, he wasn't a particularly prolific stadium champion like many of the fighters we mentioned earlier. However, once Yodsun Klai switched to fighting foreign competition, he also spammed the left kicks like Samkor, and there was absolutely nothing his opponents could do about it.
It will happen. There's the first take. Sees Chris nasty. Won't worry about as to what Garfield ended. Came to the ribs there from Yod then goes down. Khalifa is
stuff and come right back. He's absorbing a lot of this stuff.
Now, why is Muay Thai's left kick so dominant against foreign competition, but not against top Thai competition? Well, to understand this, one must understand technical styles and history. Both Yodsanklai and Samkor are southpaws, and most of their opponents were orthodox fighters. This means they're fighting in what's called an open stance engagement, where their rear attacks have a lot of open space to land. The most prominent example is the rear roundhouse, where the leg can slam into the entire body. Through decades of hard training, the roundhouse becomes a literal bat slamming across the body of the opponent. While the orthodox fighter can also throw a right rear roundhouse, it would be unlikely that they train it as much as the southpaw fighter. This is because the orthodox rear roundhouse has a much greater chance of being countered by an orthodox opponent. In same stance matchups, the rear roundhouse attacks a small space and is close to the lead arm, thus making it very easy to catch. But none of these problems would exist for the southpaw, and the statistics are in their favour. Due to southpaws being the minority amongst fighters, southpaws face orthodox fighters about 90% of the time. That means in training and in fight camp, they often spam the left kick over and over again and rarely throw the lead kick. When southpaws are practicing their rear left roundhouse, oftentimes their orthodox counterpart are practicing their lead switch kick. In fact, this is why Namsak Noi said Samkor was so hard to fight. Because Namsak Noi trained so much of the switch kick, his rear roundhouse was limited in effectiveness against Samkor. But the left kick isn't so effective just because it's an open stance attack with the largest surface area. There's a lot of adjustments that are required for it to work as well. To understand what some of these adjustments are, we can do so by studying how Samkor fought his greatest Japanese opponent, Satoshi Kobayashi. As a student of the legendary Toshio Fujiwara, Satoshi was possibly the very best Japanese kickboxer of his time. Satoshi was a very heavy-handed fighter with great combination punching, and best known for his win against the reigning Rajadamnern champion Te Palit Pa Tawachai. A year prior to meeting Samkor, Kobayashi had also knocked out the #1 ranked stadium fighter, the great Jean-Charles Starboski. Against the French Muay Thai great, Kobayashi was able to knock his opponent out with relentless pressure and powerful hooks. Starboski tried to throw many left kicks, but while they landed, they were mostly ineffective against Kobayashi. Countering a combination puncher with great pressure and power is not easy. In order to defeat those that excel in combinations, it is critical to disrupt their entries. Once the combination starts getting off, it becomes very dangerous. And with Satoshi possessing one-punch knockout in both hands, it's risky for any opponent to trade punches or let him get into the punching range. So what was Samkor's solution? Blast the arms with rear roundhouses in the southpaw stance. This forces the opponent to defend with both arms, providing a shock effect and gradually damaging the ability to attack or defend. Yes, Kobayashi would keep moving forward and put on a poker face, but as the fight went on, the truth revealed itself. Over time, a great roundhouse on the arms produces a dead arm effect, and not even a conditioned fighter like Kobayashi could continue fighting effectively. But the southpaw left kick isn't as simple as just chucking it with atomic power. There's a lot of technical and tactical adjustments here too. For example, there was built-in defense in Samkor's kicks. The traditional way to throw a roundhouse is to swing downward for power, but a more defensive guard is often used to better defend punches, and this adapted guard swings straight across the parry or close off punch angles. The elite kickers know exactly when to use each variation, and they adjust the swings as they throw the kicks or anticipate the counters. Note how Samkor would constantly adjust the swings, particularly when he's kicking in punching range. Once a roundhouse can constantly produce the shock effect, this creates a big conundrum for the puncher. You see, every time they punch, their body becomes very exposed. When a kick like Samkor's comes in so fast and so powerfully, it's going to make even the hardest and most aggressive punchers be more selective with their shots. While Kobayashi thrives in the combination punching, creating chaos for anyone who lets him get started, it was a different story against Samkor. Against Samkor, he was forced to be much more calculated, and particularly so with his rear punches, which exposes his ribs every time he fires it. Yes, every time a punch is thrown, it's a chance for Samkor to blast his ribs. So that leaves Kobayashi with little to no option except to keep taking the kicks on his arm. But then eventually, this produces what's called the dead arm. The arm takes so much punishment that it can no longer attack or defend properly. At this point, it's game over. A grandmaster of left kick can easily shut down and checkmate combination punches. This is why so many southpaws have come from Muay Thai to dominate kickboxing. It's also so easy to think by looking at this video, Samkor was a master of one trick. But that is just not true at all. At this level, Samkor was a master of all 8 limbs. But with one of those limbs, he is a once-in-a-lifetime grandmaster. If you enjoyed this episode, please do watch another episode of Striking Breakdowns. I'm Lawrence Kenshin, and thank you for keeping our channel alive.